members of the executive committee, distinguished past students, fellow swans, good afternoon. Let me take a deep breath. I'm extremely honored to be recognized as the distinguished past student for 2023. I can't thank you all enough for this award. You would have heard aspects of my story as the citation was read. But in accepting this award, I would like to share just snippets of my journey along the way. Not too long a journey. I vividly remember the first day of school, Monday, September 4, 1967, more than half a century ago. I wasn't particularly happy at the time for a number of reasons. The first is that the first formers, 7th graders now, were asked to wear white dresses for the first few weeks of school. This was a period when we were transitioning from the full dark green in the top and bottom to the light green plaid with white blouses. As you would have heard, I came to high school as a country girl, and by the time my parents got to Kingston to purchase material to make the uniforms, the school had run out of supplies. We were asked to wear white dresses. We clearly stood out from the rest of the student body, and I certainly didn't like the scrutiny. Thankfully, by the middle of the first term, my uniforms were ready, and I was able to blend in with the crowd. The second reason I wasn't particularly happy during the first year of my time at St. Hugh's was due to the fact that this was the first time I would be leaving home for an extended period. At 11 years old, I became a boarder at the hostel next door. What a stress. Routine after routine after routine. Up at 6, breakfast at 7, school at 10 minutes to 8. Back from school, music lessons, supper at 5:30. Homework 7 to 9. Lights out at 10. And the routine would begin all over again. We had a little respite on weekends. Saturday, Tom Redcom Library. Patches by Bruce's. And on Sunday, we donned our white dresses again. Off to St. Luke's Anglican Church in Crossroads, twice on Sundays. Donning the white dresses. Walking in pairs to and from Wadlinster Road to Crossroads, boldly escorted by our sixth form prefects. Thankfully, the gloom didn't last too long. I made new friends who ultimately became lifelong friends to this day. One of them who's here today, Janice.
Nice, Janice.
So, I am what educators would call a late bloomer. I was really just an average student at school. A spattering of A's here and there. Really just a spattering. But mainly in the B to B plus range. I never got a demerit for all the time I was at St. Hugh's. But I wasn't goody two shoes either. I remember one instance when cricket was being played at Sabina Park, and I left the school unbeknownst to many persons. Myself and another sixth former, we sat, watched our cricket, and got back in time for dismissal. I wasn't in any goody two shoes, but I was pretty decent. I came in as a shy 11-year-old, but by the third form, I seem to have passed through the worst, ably assisted by a few teachers who saw some hidden potential and really worked to bring out the best in me. And by the time I got to sixth form, I was quite loud. Not boisterous, but loud. There was Daphne Morrison who taught me English language and literature in second form. I remember feeling quite awkward and clumsy at times in class. It was Miss Morrison who took me aside one day and told me quite reassuringly that I was just going through a period where my physical movements were not keeping up with the signals from my brain, and that I would soon get over it. Thankfully, that period passed, and I thank her for that bit of advice. God bless her soul. Then we had Mrs. Rita Symes, my geography teacher, who was my role model, and Susan's sister as well, Bridget. She was also in the class where geography what we do call ourselves, just so passionate about geography. I really loved the subject, and Mrs. Science literally opened up the world for me to see and study. Over the years, I have been able to combine work with travel, and have had the good fortune of representing Jamaica and the Caribbean in every country in the Caribbean, and as far away as Japan, Australia, New Zealand, India, Ghana, Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, the USA, and so on. On occasions when I travel, when the travel bug gets to me, I have fleeting thoughts of writing a geography textbook on the Caribbean. My geography teachers, I am sure, would approve of this. And of course, there was the incomparable Dr. Ines Carnegie. She impacted me more than I could ever imagine. How did a student from St. Hugh's end up spending more than 35 years in Tibet? St. Hugh's was known for the pure subjects, mathematics, the physics, the sciences, the languages, Latin, French, German, Spanish, not skills-based subjects. I don't even remember seeing a T-square used in technical drawing on the compound in my years there. The only subjects that fell in that category were the home ec, the business subjects, economics, accounting. Nevertheless, when our cohort got to the sixth form, we were encouraged by Mrs. Carnegie to take up some sort of skills training. According to her, my girls must learn to get their hands dirty. So, we had a variety of subjects from which to choose. I selected automech and typewriting, both of which I thought might be of use in the future. Learning to change the oil, spark plugs, and of course the tires. Fast forward to the early 80s, when I took up this partial scholarship to study geography in the US. In that program, there were several students from the oil-rich Middle East, mainly men. English not being the first language, they appeared to struggle with not only the language, but they had challenges typing their own papers. In jumped my intuition. Why not provide a service? I put on my notice in the Grand Lounge. I offered typing services. Suffice it to say that at that time, at US $5 a page, I was able to pay my way through university. And that signaled to me that by having a skill, one could certainly earn money. Hence my foray into Tibet. I've never looked back since and spent the last 35 years advocating for Tibet, where we emphasize not only the knowledge, but the skills and the attitude, creating that whole person. Might I say that having lived in Canada, I see the value of skills more than ever. I say no more. Tibet has become a skill and a vehicle for development. So I'm still doing what to me is no longer work, but an investment in people. I've trained over 5,000 trainers across the region. Some of the names are quite familiar to you: Norma Brown, Paulette Porter, Yannick Page, to name a few who have passed through me. And I still mentor quite a few. But back to school, my happiest moments were those at Christmas time. I look forward to the last day of each Christmas term when the sixth formers would dress up in costumes representing various themes and would go from room to room collecting gifts that the students brought for the needy in children's homes. Later, we would take our chairs down to the auditorium and sing Christmas carols in different languages. We would sing lustily at the top of our voices, whether or not we studied the language. For Spanish, it was Feliz Navidad. For French, Il est né le divin enfant. And German, O Tannenbaum. Wonderful memories. So, while I entered the school, a shy, chubby first former, I want to believe that thanks to the dedicated teachers, the incomparable Dr. Carnegie, who gave us so many firsts, as a visionary leader, mind you, and this was in the early 70s, so we heard about the reading lab, the first language lab, a swimming pool, yes, and while we were very tired of contributing, thank you so much. Coming to the end.
Please.
Yes, I was talking about Dr. Carnegie and the visionary leader she was. This was in the early 1970s, the first reading lab, the first language lab, a swimming pool. And yes, after a while, we became tired of contributing 5 cents a week. The fun thermometer, they had a fun thermometer, it never seemed to move. Yeah? So seemingly endless target to meet, but eventually we did end up meeting the target for that swimming pool. We had a career guidance counselor, not known at that time, a nutritionist. And by the time I got to sixth form, a sixth form lounge. Where else was this ever done? And this was in the late 60s to early 70s. So learning to share, learning to respect each other, learning to appreciate diversity, each other's differences, cultural norms and sensitivities are characteristics that were developed at St. Hugh's and have served me well over the years, contributing to the person who I am today. For this, I sincerely thank the teachers and my peers. I would also like to thank the small village of friends and family who filled in my absence of PTA meetings and so on when I had to travel overseas for extended periods. As I end, I commit to continue contributing to the school and to the Canadian chapter under President Paulette, who has worked very hard over the past 2 years to expand the chapter and to raise funds to advance the school and the students. I wish the school and the Past Students Association all the very best as you continue to work towards making a difference in the lives of our students. To you, all I say, Fidelitas. Thank you.